I'm here today with Alex Osterwalder, who's the co-developer of the business model Canvas and co-founder of Strategyzer, and somebody I think who we can legitimately say has changed the way we think about the world, or at least about the world of innovation. So Alex, we've known each other for a while, and I think today we use the business model Canvas every day of my life. But it wasn't always that way. Your business model Canvas started as your dissertation.
Yeah, so we were trying to figure out with my PhD supervisor, Yves Pigneur, how could we just map a business model? When people were still writing business plans, we thought, hey, there must be a better way. So that's how it all started out.
So the way I recall it is that this young man arrives at my door somehow and says, look what I've got. And my response was, as an expert, was, why would you waste your time on that? I think I actually said that. I said, the world has enough business model books. You persevered. You ignored my expert advice.
So I didn't ignore it, but I was selectively listening in the sense that you want to listen to all of those data points out there and then shape your own opinion and connect that with the vision you have. So it's not about not listening, and it's not about listening too much. It's about connecting the dots with the vision. And I've heard a lot of people tell me, this is not going to work. You know, we wanted to make a visual book, and people said, well, what are you trying to do? So you just have to go on and put those things together and change the course, you know, with what you hear.
Well, what was the title, the original title of your dissertation?
The dissertation was called The Business Model Ontology, because you need a word like that to get a PhD.
I think that was when you mentioned that. I think that's when I thought, this will never work, right?
It was pretty sophisticated, and we're only doing this now in the real world. We tried to create something that would allow us to make computer-aided design for business. So you could actually work like an architect with a drawing table, maybe with computer-aided design, and put your business model together and experiment. Prototype your business model just like you prototype buildings or in industrial design. That was the initial idea.
And the response that you got from the marketplace?
So we actually tested the model itself, try to figure out, does this allow managers and entrepreneurs map out their business model? And that was pretty good. And then over time, people were really onto this. So I think we were also lucky with the timing a little bit, the business model topic.
You know, one of the things that's interesting to me is that when you see big disruptions in any field, whether it's products or services or thoughts, there seems to be like a moment where a lot of different people are talking about the same phenomenon. In the case of the business model, that was true. There were new books coming out. There was an article in Fortune by Jeffrey Colvin. I mean, there was a lot going on around innovation. Was that an advantage or a disadvantage? Did you feel a quickening of the pace?
I think it was a huge advantage. So, I think we got very lucky on the timing. I think what I would take a little bit of credit for is that we really pushed through, and we didn't believe in this as a trend. It was the e-commerce era. We always believed in business models for every single company.
Right.
And that is only something we're seeing now, that banking is being disrupted, pharma is being disrupted. I still believe that those companies that better understand business models and business model portfolios, they will outcompete everybody else. That business models is a topic for everybody. But we were able to surf that wave. So there's more and more indicators that there's really something here. So I continued to just, investigate and pursue this project.
Right. And was there a difference in the advice you got from people like myself, who self-styled experts on innovation, and people who were out in the field doing innovation?
So people we asked about this kind of book we wanted to write, after the PhD, we want to make a visual book. That wasn't very clear to people because nobody's done that in the business world. But the tool itself, we saw, the adoption increasing more and more. I shared a lot of things, back then on a platform called SlideShare, and I could just see the adoption was pretty good. So that was for me the trigger to say, hey, what if we write a more accessible book, not just a PhD, so we can spread the word even more. And I think, there was already a lot of work out there on business models. So we were not the first. We didn't invent the term business model or the concept itself. But what we did is we took all of the work there, we synthesized it and turned it into a tool. Very simple, very accessible. We avoided any kind of jargon. We made it very visual and practical, so people could put it on a wall and then discuss their business model. So having an artifact. So I think what was a little bit different from others was practical, simple, visual, But then, taking the design thinking approach and saying, hey, you can shape your business model. It's like, industrial design, but here we're talking about a business concept.
Right. Do you ever have any doubts?
Every day.
Every day.
You still go on as this back and forth between market signals and doubts that you just have to kind of push ahead and try.
And so one of the things I love about your story is that it really is an innovation story. We use it as a tool for innovation. You put it out there in the open. Nobody would ever think to do that. Most publishers shy away from even talking about a book before it comes out. But you self-published so that you could have control over what you did.
Yeah, so the idea was, you can't write on business model innovation without doing it.
Right.
It's not very credible. So with Yves, first I had to convince him, let's do something differently. And then we just tried out, what could we do? We looked at, prototyped ideas. And then we went for something that, today is normal, crowdfunding. We said, we'll put our work out there, you can participate, and you have to pay us if you want to participate. We just tried it out, and it worked pretty fine. And I do think that was the trigger, the initial kind of, spark that led the book to take off, because we had 470 people who paid to be part of this, but they also had their name in the book.
Right.
So for them, it was a motivation to, bring the book to other people and say, hey, I got my name in here, I participated. I do think that was the initial spark.
And also they gave you good ideas and illustrations and things that you couldn't have come up with on your own.
So we had a very strong kind of direction. We knew what we wanted in there, but we posted everything to that group and they gave us feedback. So we could feel what would work, what was too complicated. So I'd say most of the ideas still came from us. Most of the work was done by us, but it was extremely valuable to co-create in the sense of getting this feedback and stress testing. It makes you very vulnerable at the same time, because you're putting your stuff out there. You're not hidden somewhere in a room, then you publish it and then it works or it doesn't. Put it in front of people and then they will tell you, hey, this doesn't work for a practitioner. You got to change this. This makes no sense. So you're very vulnerable in that situation. But I think that helped us make a better book. Even us, I think you were asking about doubts, we said, oh, well, if we get to 50,000 books, then that would be a success. And now we're over 1.5 million with the first book. And I think we just, I really now believe in the prototyping approach, listening very careful to customers, but not always doing everything they say. So like your advice, I was listening very carefully.
I should get credit for giving you advice that moved the needle a bit.
For sure. So it's that, customer centricity, but at the same time, you still believe in your vision. You don't give up your vision, but you change the steps based on what you hear.
Okay. So if you're watching this, you must be interested in innovation. And one of the things that I hope you see is that Alex is not only practicing innovation, but he's living it. It comes almost instinctive. And we're good enough friends, I don't have to, I think, be nice to you. But this is a quality in you that I really admire. And it's curiosity, it's openness. You do go and talk to a lot of different people. You do know almost everybody in the field, and you're testing ideas all the time. Have you always been like that?
So I think what I've always had was a lack of fear of failure. And I think you need to have that if you're in innovation, because you're being humiliated every day and humbled every day, because you realize the more people you talk to, the more you realize you actually don't know anything. So that is a quality on the one hand. The other hand, it's naivete, you could say, because you start addressing problems that probably can't be solved. I do think you need a little bit of that to question, the fundamental assumptions. Go ahead and try it out.
Well, what I would say is, do you have to be born with that? Do you have to be born with this, lack of fear of failure?
It's always a bit dangerous to talk about failure and risk and all that. So, of course, it's not about going out there and taking crazy risks. So I don't do that. You take little risks. You try little things. And there's no risk in talking to people and sharing an idea and looking stupid. That's a risk of the ego, but it's not financially, costly. So the more you actually experiment, the more you stay curious and just try out and see what works, the more you reduce the risk of big failure. It's actually when you take a step back, you believe in your ideas, you start building them because you believe so much without having tested them well enough that you're going to waste a lot of money. But then there's the other aspect. You can try out too much and never build. So it's always a back and forth between advancing, building, and trying out. So can't stay stuck in analysis paralysis, but you shouldn't believe so much in your ideas that you're just going to build something that's not stress tested.
Right. But you didn't test your ideas with friends, you tested them with strangers.
Yeah. With friends it's easy because as you said, you can look stupid and it's not a big problem.
Right.
But getting out there and talking about stuff that's nobody's done, probably hard to do, and talking to the experts about this, you kind of look stupid. But that's okay because you're going to get great feedback. You're going to learn so much that you're going to change. So as long as you know that you're doing this to learn and adapt, so failure is not the goal. Nobody wants to fail.
Right.
Failure is painful. But it's part of decreasing the risk of big failure. So you're making small bets all the time. You're going to look silly for a long time until you figured out how to really make it work. It's really more risk management. And research shows that entrepreneurs are actually pretty risk averse, which sounds contradictory, but they make calculated bets. So it's not about taking a big risk. It's not base jumping. You take small and calculated risks. That's what innovation is about.
So let me talk about a few of the things that I think are so important about your innovation, your canvas, and it's changed the way we think about innovation. You're a good enough friend. I think I can do this without being seen as being a promoter. But one of the things is that I spent the first 100 years of my career in a world where people said, be careful, don't talk about finance or the economics or pricing of an innovation too early because you'll dampen the creativity of the innovators. But now we use the canvas at minute zero. What do you think?
Fully agree that it's important to think about all aspects of your business model right away. And what struck me at the beginning when we were starting out, we got people to put up sticky notes, and then it's like finance would go away as soon as you use sticky notes. It always struck me, but then we tried to kind of push it back in because I think you need to prototype the numbers right away to figure out, is this idea even big enough or could it be? Because once you have the numbers, it doesn't mean those are the numbers you're going to really be able to implement. It's a prototype. But if you have 3-4 ideas, you want to be able to figure out which one is the better opportunity, potentially. But you can't just think about, product services, even customer needs. You need to think business model immediately, because at the end of the day, it's the size of the opportunity that will make a difference. If you're Nestle, GE, you need to get to a certain size of opportunity. And I've seen too many senior leaders focus on small ideas because they don't play through the numbers immediately. So we're wasting our time if we don't immediately prototype finance as well.
So in a sense, what we're finding ourselves doing is prototyping pricing and prototyping the methods of revenue generation, and as well as everything else, channels and the like, right from the beginning. That's part of the innovative process.
And I'd go further than that. It's not just prototyping, because at the end, if you have a beautiful spreadsheet, it's still just a series of assumptions. So from day one, you need to go and test those assumptions, pricing experiments, willingness to pay. And a couple of companies like Porsche with the Cayenne has done that very early on. And look where they landed with that, initiative. So I think we need to, on the one hand, prototype finance, but then immediately go and test, so the spreadsheet doesn't just stay a fantasy, but it becomes a validated spreadsheet where you have real evidence to prove, hey, we're on the right path.
The other thing that I see is that if I look at the cells in the business model canvas, every cell has been the parent of a disruptive innovation. So if you think about Uber or Airbnb or Xiaomi or Tencent, they're just as much business model innovations as they are anything else. And so what it's done is it's broadened the field in which we can innovate, and it legitimizes everybody in the room, no matter what their function, as thinking of themselves as an innovator. They can be a contributor.
I think so. So I have mixed feelings on that, in the sense that yes, everybody needs to be an innovator, but those who innovate the supply chain or new marketing methods, that's not the same thing as building completely new growth engines. So I think it's the responsibility of everybody to improve a business model, and that you can do in every cell, but it's not necessarily everybody's responsibility to create new growth engines. For that, you need real entrepreneurs or intrapreneurs, however you want to call them. So we need different types of innovators, those that are more product, those are supply chain, those are on the different cells. But then we also need a completely other breed of innovators, which are those who can create new growth engines inside of a company. So everybody needs to be an innovator, but in a different way.
Right, right. The other thing I love about it is inherently inclusive. So just by its format, it invites people in to make a contribution.
And that's been a big one from the beginning, and I think that helped with adoption. It's a shared language, and it's a language that's relatively holistic, so everybody can contribute. So when you have marketers, finance people, operations people, technology people around a table, if you don't have a shared language, it's very hard to cooperate, to create together. Here we create a shared language. So again, back to design thinking, how can you talk about some kind of industrial design without having a physical object? It's the same in strategy, innovation, business models, value propositions. If you don't have an object that we can focus on as a team, it's very abstract. So we need this thing that we can work on together.
Right.
And I think we don't have that enough the higher you get in the hierarchy of an organization. It's as if strategic problems are simpler. We don't need something, to talk about. So we can just use language. So I do think those visual tools help us to go a lot faster, to do things that we've always done. We've always had to improve business models or try to rethink them, but now we can do that more systematically with a shared language. I do think it makes a big, big difference.
So as we're sitting here thinking about this, I'm thinking about as an engineer, I've always been fascinated by technology, but what I now see is that so much of what I do, thanks to the business model canvas, is I'm developing a narrative of change around customer journey, around memorable moments, around value propositions. Some days I don't think about technology at all.
Yeah, and I think that's a big one. So typically at MasterCard, where they rolled this out over a large group of people, 15% of the company use this now. The chief product officer at the time, Tim Murphy, had this vision of going beyond products and features to think more globally about the business, and that's why he started using the business model canvas. So I think technology innovation is one type of innovation, but it's a subset. A lot of innovation can come from other aspects of the business model or the entire business model. I mean, my favorite example is still the Nintendo Wii. With an inferior technology, they disrupted the market because they had a different value proposition and a mass market business model. Same now with the Nintendo Labo. They're inventing something new with cardboard. So I would like to get people away from thinking, innovation equals technology, because you're narrowing down the opportunity. The opportunities are much broader, and that shouldn't limit us. It doesn't have to be technology. It can be, but it doesn't have to be.
So what's your most memorable moment on this journey in terms of designing it?
So I remember the very first time I talked to a C-suite of a huge German company and was presenting the business model canvas. For me, it was the first at this level of an organization. It was 10 years ago or so, and I thought they were going to throw me out of the room. This is too simple for people who are managing billions of euros. And it was the other way around. And that was very memorable for me because the CFO at the time said, look, this is a really great way to think about the entire business. We didn't do that on one page, the whole thing. We'd think of aspects of our business, but everything on one page. So it was very unique. And that really was for me a trigger to say, hey, it's simple, but it's not simplistic, and it's actually very powerful even for large businesses, not just for startups.
So there's a piece of this that's missing, and the piece is you have a bigger vision than the canvas. Once I got over the disbelief in the canvas, I then suffered from disbelief over the ability you could do anything beyond that. But you have a belief in a systematic approach. You want to talk about that?
Yeah, I always had this bigger vision together with Yves Pigneur, my co-author, now with the Strategyzer team, our company, that visual tools to solve some of the big issues, management issues, innovation issues that people face, that's a very powerful thing. So we started out with a business model canvas. That was based on a PhD, so we had more time. Then we created the value proposition canvas because we've seen that people were struggling with creating products that really connect with customer needs, so we created a tool for that. And now our latest tool is called the Business Portfolio Map, where we see that, hey, senior leaders they don't care that much about business models. You know, if you're talking about the C-suite of Nestle or GE, they make portfolio allocations. So what's the language to speak innovation at that level? So we came up with the business model portfolio. So I really have a strong belief that these visual tools help managers, entrepreneurs, intrapreneurs do a better job, and we're really seeing that now just through the adoption. That's the one aspect. The other aspect, I still fundamentally believe computer-aided design can help us with some aspects. It's never going to replace human creativity, and that's not the point. It's the same with architects or industrial designers. Computer-aided design helped them be even more creative, explore stuff that you can't do without computer-aided design. I believe the same will happen in business. So, you know, SAP, Oracle, they created that for operations. What do we have in strategy and innovation? We don't have those powerful tools that support us, maybe beyond, you know, Excel and PowerPoint. That's not enough. And it's not about business analytics. It's about designing new business models, new portfolios, and creating that innovation portfolio live. So that's the stronger vision that we're working towards, making small steps. I think we're just at the beginning of it.
And that's what Strategyzer is all about as an organization.
And we're going step by step. So the vision hasn't changed, I think, over the last couple of years. What has changed are the steps we're taking based on what we're learning from the market. So, you know, entrepreneurship and innovation is about having this bold, big vision, but then figuring out how to get there. And how to get there, you're never going to get it right at the beginning. If it's really, truly different, how should you know? You can't get that path right, but it's about finding, exploring that path to that destination.
This is great. Thank you so much for being here. And thank you for the Business Model Canvas. And thank you for, I think I should get some credit for this.
I do believe so. So by the way, I mean, the reason why I came to meet you is because I really wanted to, you know, meet the innovation gurus in the field and learn from them, because I don't think you can develop new stuff if you're not listening to what's already there. So thank you as well.